With that, I'll kick it off.
Okay.
Welcome to the Quantum Leap episode here on August 18th. It's just going to be Cory and I today because we wanted to kind of regroup and go over two key items here. One is really the future of the Quantum Leap broadcast and kind of our notes as we've relatively early into the series of broadcasts. So we're 6 episodes in terms of the produced episodes, and we've really got a great response. We want to talk about that and what we're doing going forward. We also want to talk about some business development strategies under COVID-19. I know Cory is really an expert in business development and taught me a lot of what I know, so I wanted to lean on his expertise, but also share some things that I've learned really in the conversations I've had with other business owners in terms of what we see working out there. So I think both Cory and I have a lot of anecdotal advice in that area. And with that, I just wanted to have Cory introduce himself for those of you who may not know him and just have him say what he thinks of the Quantum Leap podcast so far.
Hey everyone, I'm Cory Nott, and I am a business coach with Take Wing Coaching. It's a company run by my wife and I. We're both business coaches, and we work best with freelancers and solopreneurs who are purpose-driven and looking to balance their lifestyle with their business. So to get all that business that they want, while at the same time also enjoying the lifestyle that they feel most free in. We can also work with smaller firms, and we have a number of different offerings. One of the big things we're working on, I'll be talking about later, which is Lift, our online community that we've been building for various reasons and as a part of this podcast. As far as the Quantum Leap podcast, I feel like it's going well. I enjoy hearing from everyone their stories. I enjoy hearing their expertise and their plans for their business. It makes for a unique perspective that we often don't hear, except from those people who are maybe wildly successful, or we want to hear from people who are more like us. I feel like the Quantum Leap broadcast is still new, so where it expands over time will be interesting, and that'll be good for everyone who's participated, past and present. So there's a lot of potential here.
Thank you. And I agree with you. I remember listening to Ivan Misner's first podcast. And for those of you who don't know Ivan, he's the father of modern networking. And he actually created the B&I organization, which Cory has been involved in for a number of years now. He's actually a area director and started a number of B&I chapters himself. And that's really the premier networking organization for small business in the United States and worldwide. So if you don't know much about B&I and you are a small business owner, definitely find out more. And what Ivan said is that he wanted to, with his podcast, to flatten kind of the communication strategy to be able to communicate directly with the membership. And I think that's what I strive for here, Cory and I, with Quantum Leap, to communicate directly with small business owners to provide practical insights on your business about how to succeed and thrive even under this COVID environment. And there are a number of themes that we've kind of been fleshing out, and it was really founded on the belief that there's infinite potential locked up within us to succeed even in the COVID environment if you do the right things. And that's what a lot of Cory has shared and continues to share, and will do in the future, is really best practices in the area of business development, but also telling stories of success through the people who we have on as guests. What is working in COVID-19? What doesn't work? How have they pivoted their business? And I think that the Chinese character for crisis, which means it's two brushstrokes, which means danger and opportunity, really sums up the COVID crisis, in that you have the danger of the health risks of COVID, but then you have the opportunity in that what I've seen successful people do under COVID is make a quick pivot. Sometimes that's taken a few weeks. Sometimes it's taken, in my case, a couple months to really pivot your business to be successful under COVID. And that's what those stories are the ones we're telling. Your marketing is totally different under COVID, pre-COVID versus COVID. So that's what we're looking at, sharing, successful business development strategies. I did want to ask Cory about his thoughts on what he'd like to see in the future of the Quantum Leap podcast, and I could share a couple things that I have on tap as well. And basically this is through the back and forth of Cory and I and what the direction we'd like to take the podcast.
Well, yeah, I know there was some talk about some other future things, but in terms of the podcast itself, I really just like hearing from the other business owners. I think one thing we do is, tighten up the questions, maybe create a more standard template. Because maybe that goes back to the audience, what do they want to hear more of, or what do we want to hear more of? In times like these, it's good to hear from people who are like us and like-minded, and just sticking it out, whether they're gaining great success because somehow they pivoted right, or they're still working on it, they're still trying to figure that out, but they have insights that can be inspiring to others. I just feel like that's something we don't necessarily always get from some of these great speakers out there who are, telling us what we should do and what's been successful for them. But, I know from solopreneurs, they often feel like their situation is very unique. So hearing from other people who are at a similar level can also be as inspiring as hearing from some people who have forged much further ahead.
Well put. And I mean, a lot of your ideas have been incorporated into the podcast going forward. I know really the focus is kind of business coaching and business development. That's what I call the wheelhouse of the broadcast, but I love seeing that play out in individual stories. So we had, Phil Bennett on, who's an African safari guide, to share his situation under COVID, how he's coping. So it isn't only about the successes, it is about the failures as well, and how we cope with those as business owners. I know we are going to have some folks that which is a broad network of B&I leaders and business leaders, business coaches, to I think share all points of the spectrum, to where it's not only people who have been kind of wildly successful like Tony Robbins, but people who are maybe earlier on in their entrepreneurial journey and what has worked for them. And I think a real synergy that I've seen between the broadcast is actually between Quantum Leap and your Lift platform, which actually got started right around the same time as Quantum Leap. And I just wanted to have you talk a little bit about the Lift platform, if folks don't know about it, and how that can help freelancers and entrepreneurs generate their quantum leap for their business.
Yeah, Gail and I started our businesses about 20 years ago. Before we met, we actually met in a networking group about 17 years ago now. But we were both selling our expertise without much knowledge of what it means to be in business, right? We just kind of hung out our hats and we're doing things for people. And along the way, so we were selling our expertise without much knowledge of what it means to be in business. And along the way, we greatly benefited from having mentors, business coaches, and colleagues to bounce ideas off of. And what we also learned is I think we both love the art of being in business more so than what we were actually selling. It's not true of most people, but for us, business is kind of about being in business. We know that most of us are working alone in our business. We like that. We like that solopreneurial lifestyle with maybe a few contractors, maybe an employee or two here and there. And so we wind up being alone. And we often feel like we have to go it alone. No one understands our unique situation. So Lift is an online discussion platform. It's self-directed, curated courses, it's monthly group coaching, we have monthly brainstorming, and we incorporate a generous feedback model in that to make everyone comfortable and feel like they're getting good feedback without being told what to do. And so we're building that Lift community around that culture of learning, inspiration, freedom, and transformation. Our original vision was to build this while we were traveling around the country in our motorhome as digital nomads. So we've been planning this for a couple of years. And then, of course, for various reasons, those plans have changed. Partly COVID, partly an unexpected arrival last year, our daughter, Kaden. But we see now more than ever that the value of an online community built on a vision of mutual support, group coaching, and learning is important. So for Gail and I at Take Wing, quantum leaps usually come from working with a business coach or some other types of coaches. And we hire new coaches every year. We invest a great deal in our professional development, and we know not everybody can afford that or may not be certain which way to go. So we figure by providing access to group coaching, brainstorming, discussion groups, a supportive community, our Lift members are encouraged to move forward. And sometimes that's just a small leap, and sometimes that small leap can even be a quantum leap for somebody who's feeling stuck.
Yeah, and I sometimes I get it that people ask me about quantum leap, and maybe they're skeptics, so to speak, that they say, well, that's a tall order. And I really don't think it's actually false advertising, given that a quantum leap to some people might be a 30% increase in sales over 2 years, which is, I'd call that a quantum leap by any measure. But it also might be becoming a multimillionaire. And I think what's interesting is the process is very similar. And I forget who said that it takes no more effort to live in live in misery and poverty than it does to have a success and abundance. It's actually harder to live that lifestyle and the mindset in poverty, and it's a lot easier if you kind of take the high road and set your goals high and go for success. And I have a great testimonial for the Lift platform. It's really, I'm actually going through your one of your key modules, Flight Plan, for the second time, which the first time actually helped me develop my business and come up with the idea for Quantum Leap to begin with. And now going through it the second time, it's really a process of self-discovery and business development that is really unique. And I haven't seen any other kind of online platform that does it as well, but is also is welcoming and accessible as Lyft is. So for as little as $15, or I don't know what the monthly fee is right now, you can go on there and really have a powerful resource to develop your process, your business going forward. So I appreciate you offering that platform.
Thank you. And and we've discussed putting more content out for Quantum Leap, including more blog content. So what do you see for the future of the Quantum Leap blog and its related content?
Yeah, well, again, this is another idea that I've kind of got from following you and what you do, and that I just see you as such a wealth of knowledge that we're actually going to take key concepts or modules that you've taught on as part of your kind of core curriculum for business development, and we're going to blog on that. Maybe it's self-image, maybe it's a customer retention system, maybe it's the different learning styles, insights on that, written columns, and maybe it's a video of you talking as well. I'd eventually like to get to a guide or a book that we co-author with this great content, but we'll kind of start with baby steps there. So keep an eye out for Quantum Leap branded content co-authored from Cory and I.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I'm looking forward to that, and there's a lot of content that I've written. Obviously, we'll put a lot of that on the Lyft platform, and it's meant to be shared, and some will apply more to your people than to mine. So really great.
Thank you. And I always love asking you this question or hearing you touch on it, because I've actually at various stages during COVID, I've heard you respond to this question, and with that, another what I would call $1 million question touches on this theme of how to weather the COVID-19 storm and grow your business during these challenging times. What insights do you have for our listeners on how to grow their business during this environment?
So I think the answer, and you probably hear this from me every time, is that it starts with vision. Is that right? So, a great mentor many years ago when I was getting into a new line of work, actually getting into this coaching line of work in a slightly different form, and I was feeling really stuck. Just like I couldn't move forward. It was very different than what I had been doing before. And, so all those voices and all those stories in my head were holding me way back. And there's other challenges as well. It's a whole different change in income. And so my mentor said, that I'm feeling stuck. My vision isn't big enough. And I said, well, I've been working on my vision for a while, and, it's got this all written. So what do you mean? She says, well, go bigger. What that means is there's always obstacles in business and in life. Vision means having a view of the future possibilities that you can use to see over those obstacles. And that cultivates resilience and supports perseverance. A person with vision, and that's all of us when we practice it, and it must be written down to work well, is compelled by that vision to move forward. And when those challenges seem to be beyond control, and this year, I think the challenges are beyond just about the control of anyone, that vision must be made more compelling. So for those wondering, what is a vision? Well, I see it as a view of the future as you dream it to be. And you bring that in the present so that in some way you live that vision every day. And so you are living beyond your current circumstances. So whether your dreams for the future are huge or just moderate, writing them down and making them into a story that is compelling for you will help you overcome any challenge. And when the challenges loom larger or seem insurmountable, make that written vision even more compelling for you. Whether that means going bigger, as I did, or going deeper with the story. And share it. Sharing it makes it more real for you, and it inspires others to support you and to do it for themselves. And you start building a community that's very similar to you around you. And our LIFT program has a vision workshop as part of the flight plan course. It can be taken with the course or separately. I think it's a good process to go through every year. You get that from us. You can find other vision options online. I even know a couple of companies that are doing that for people who aren't in business but would like to have more of a life vision. And, they do it the same way we do it, but more for life. And, speaking of LIFT, it feels very small for us right now. We have about 25 members, and, so it sometimes feels slow and not a lot of people doing things yet. But we have a big vision for it, and that's what keeps us rolling forward. And going back to Ivan Misner, who I know is one of your inspirations, he says to do things, 6 things 1,000 times instead of 1,000 things 6 times. And for entrepreneurs, that can be very difficult. But the vision, having that big vision, often helps us stay on that path and keep to the things that we're working on rather than jumping to the next thing when it becomes too challenging. So that's it. Vision. Have a big vision.
Great. Thank you. And I know I remember just reading a chapter of Think and Grow Rich, which is basically the Bible of business development in a lot of ways, or I call it the Bible. They say, well, really lack of a purpose or a direction is really one of the key causes of failure. So if you don't have that vision that you're looking at, that you're headed towards, you really lack direction and the ability to, take your business in a positive direction. So really, I think he says was the smaller brother or cousin of that is inaction and procrastination. So when you have the vision, it propels you in the right direction. I think you also talked about referring to really mindset, putting that vision into action. I think one thing that you are great at is helping people come up with the tools and the process to develop that vision. And I think it's just really, I found it impossible to do it on your own without a coach. I just couldn't do it myself before, and that's something that I lack. But once I started working with you and also another business coach of mine, Pradna Leitner, who we're actually going to have on next week, I really started to see a big change in the direction of my business and the kind of development of that vision, and then really the ability to kind of carry out that vision. So, which brings me to my next question. Another big area of knowledge that you've taught me about, and also leading through examples, referral marketing. You're a B&I area director, and you continue to help grow local B&I chapters. Could you talk a bit about what referral marketing is, your work with B&I, and why small business owners and entrepreneurs might want to consider joining B&I during the time of COVID-19?
Yeah. There's a couple of things that I can cover this from this angle. And first of all, one of the things that I often get from people, because if you're not in B&I or you're looking at these networks and things, and I know a lot of the objections, like, I'm not a joiner, I don't really want to be around all these people, I don't know if I can bring referrals, blah, blah, blah. I can tell you, I struggled with relationships all of my life. And when I started my business, I probably had, 2 friends, one who was, living off of disability, and another who was a major alcoholic. So what am I trying to say here? I wasn't really a joiner. I wasn't a builder. I didn't know how to bring referrals. I couldn't do all those things. But when I got into B&I, and by the way, that was a quantum leap for me to make the decision to actually visit a chapter and then make a decision to get involved. What I saw was a group of people who are very like-minded. They're inspiring to each other. They're overcoming challenges, and And the referrals is a big part of it. And so, if you come with an attitude of I'm going to give how I can, then other people are going to give back to you. And I think that's the amazing thing about BNI and this philosophy of givers gain that underpins its culture, is it isn't just about can I bring business to people, it's what else can I bring. And the business will come, right? So as my business grows, then I can help others grow their business. And that's the way it's worked for me, and I've seen for so many others. So referral marketing is such a dry term, but it's really about building relationships with other people who are like-minded and helping each other grow their business. I mean, you can do referral marketing with all that out. Without all that, you can implement systems to get referrals from customers and so on. But what we're really talking about is having strong business relationships that support you in so many other ways, but referrals being an important part of it because that's part of business growth. And it also leads to great customers. All my great customers have come best from referrals, and it's been very successful for me over the years. As a BNI director, and why people would want to join now in the COVID-19, relationships become more important when business is slow, right? When the last 5 or 6 years we have just seen business falling off the trees, right? It's like try to talk to a contractor or a handyman or anybody kind of in the trades, and they're just swamped, and that spreads out to a lot of us. And so people say, oh well, I don't really need this business now, so why should I do this referral marketing? Well, as soon as things slow down, if you don't have those relationships, that business dries up and there's nobody to give it to you. The advertising doesn't work so well. Yelp doesn't work so well. People start becoming really careful with their money when they actually have it to spend, and they start going to look for referrals from people they can trust. It's a great way to build relationships. Even when I was really busy, and the last 10 years I stayed in BNI, and I wouldn't say so much that I turned down referrals as I just found ways to avoid getting them while at the same time bringing business to my fellows, because I knew in time like this, having those relationships is what's going to sustain myself and my wife and other people that I know through it. So that's why I would join now. Is there's no better time to build relationships than today, right? There's either plant a tree 20 years ago or plant it today, but if you wait, you're just waiting on the possibilities that are there for you.
Yeah, and I just talked to a photographer today. I visited a new chapter out in Danville, and she actually spoke highly of you and knew you, and she, with BNI, actually created that chapter during the time of COVID. So that chapter came about during the time of COVID, and she really spoke highly of what you do. So I know you're not only training other people in BNI, but also the leadership of BNI to help develop new chapters during COVID. So I think that right there is a testament to the success of COVID, that you have a group of energetic entrepreneurs coming together to meet virtually during COVID. And that chapter is, I couldn't tell the difference between a chapter I visited last week, which really had been in operation for a number of years, and they'd known each other for several years, although you could probably see a few things there, but they really put down their roots really quickly and effectively, even during COVID. So with that, I did want to invite people to come join or to visit our chapter. You can email me at dk@kirsteninc.com if you want to come as a guest of Cory and I to our chapter, or maybe reach out to another BNI chapter and just come check out BNI if you haven't already. And I did want to close out this podcast, and if Cory, if you have any closing thoughts, I'll turn it over to you before going off air here.
No, I think I've said enough. Thank you for listening.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for hearing about the future of the Quantum Leap podcast and some business development tips during COVID-19. And with that, we'll look forward to having our new lineup of guests on next week with my business coach, Pradna Leitner, who's actually specializes in generating a quantum leap. She's actually the one who helped inspire my quantum leap, her with Cory, together with Cory and a small circle of other business colleagues of ours. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.